pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. As you all know, this is the year-end special meeting of the commissioners to, I guess, close some business and do some stuff at the end of the year here. So I'm going to, again, ask anybody if they've got anything they want to bring up that's not on the agenda. And all right, I'll move right into the clerk's contract renewal with Crowley. So looks like Crowley being a,
it is a
what
renewal.
are they?
Yes, and they're a microfilm vendor.
Preservation
Yes.
Solutions.
And she said it's exact same amount as last year, so there was no increase.
Looks like a 4-year auto unit replacement contract for a Uniscan series. Looks like it's $1,350. Effective dates will be 2/25/22 to 2/24/23. Going to assume this is, as you said, the same as we've done in the past, so I guess I'll entertain a motion to accept the.
I'll make a motion to accept this bid to Crowley for the,
Digital.
Clerk's office, was it?
It's a digital preservation.
Yeah, I think it's something they have to add. Yeah.
I'll second that.
Randy, John makes a motion to accept the contract for another year for the same amount of money. Randy seconds that, and I'll make that unanimous.
It's original, yes.
Is Jim sign?
Yeah, thanks.
There's date 27. No, I think we just. All right, next thing, EMS Medical Director MOU for 2022. As you all are aware, our last EMS Medical Director, which is the doctor that oversees EMS, resigned. I think it was May or June or July, somewhere in there. Dr. Hicks, which is a doctor, ER doctor at Scott County Memorial, actually stepped up and continued the service for EMS till the end of the year. We did sign an MOU with him from that date to the end of the year, and I believe that was at $1,200.
$1,000 a month.
$1,000 a month. You're right. $1,000 a month till the end of the year. He wanted more at the time, and I asked him if he would hold off until this year for the fact that council was going through a budget at the time that we were all talking about this, and he agreed to that. But I think the number that he agreed to for this year and I guess going out was $1,250 a month for 12 months. So this agreement is to extend his services from January of 2022 to December 31st of 2022. So, any questions or?
I think we're lucky to have him at
We
that
are
price.
too. We are
And
too.
that's totaled out at
15,000.
Yeah.
That's correct.
If he hadn't have stepped in, we'd have been in a real mess.
Well, and actually, from what I understand, outside he had a heart attack on a bypass surgery or quadruple bypass or quadruple. And outside of that, I think EMS, talking with Kyle while Kyle was still there, Kyle said he was always, doing anything and everything they were asking of him. And same thing with Nick. I talked to him, and he said he's, they've had multiple conversations, so I think he's, done us a good job. So.
Now, this is on your council joint meeting
Yes.
agenda as well. So do they need to wait till the joint meeting to approve this contract, discuss it now? If they want to move forward, then it goes to council because they have not appropriated $1,250 a month.
Yeah, I'd say let's wait till we do the joint
And do it in the
session,
joint meeting.
but-
Okay.
Yeah.
We can do it at the joint meeting,
But
okay?
if you do want to act on moving it to council, you agree with this amount,
Yeah.
then I would do that if you don't mind, and
Yeah,
then we'll
that's
move it
Yeah,
to
if
council.
they say no, it's just invalid.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'll entertain a motion to accept this.
Yeah, just to submit it to council.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion to with memorandum of understanding to, the Robert Hicks to, $1,250 per month to be our medical director at Scott County EMS. I'll make that motion to approve.
John makes a motion, Randy seconds that, and I'll make that unanimous to send it to council for funding, so. All right, the next thing is the insurance coverage renewal for ISU.
I don't have really any paperwork on that because Richie is preparing to give you guys a full report on your January 5th meeting. Everything we do at this point in time, since we are already contracted years ago with them, it's just a renewal. He did update me on the expected rates, and most of this is industry related. It is not Scott County as an individual unit related. Overall, it's about a 9% increase they expect. I did take liberty to tell him that, that things could get a harder look at next year. I think we're gonna have a better workers' comp rate possibility next year because, as you know, some of those linger from several years back and then they roll off. So they look at a 3 or 5 year average. I can't remember what he told me. And then we're getting ready to roll off a not so great year that was in our past. So, that will be addressed later in 2022. But I just want to let you know that we've made applications, we've given updates. We'll continue to have coverage, and then he'll come give you a report when the final numbers come in.
Well, correct me if I'm not wrong here, Richie's a broker too, isn't he? So it's not like he's doing this just for a firm, he's
Right.
searching for the best deal.
Yes, because last year, if you remember, he gave us a better rate because he switched from Travelers to Liberty
Yeah.
Mutual, just from us being his client and him trying to
Yeah.
get the better deal
Yeah.
for us, which added to a significant savings. So he's not an agent, he's a broker. So he looks at the plans and who can give you the better rates for
Yeah.
what our rating is. So that is one advantage with that. So, but anyway, that's for you guys. I just wanted to update you on that we're fine. Our insurance is gonna carry over through the end of the year, and he'll be back in January to give you a report and a synopsis, okay?
Good. Guess at that point, let's look at consideration of year-end claims.
Will this be one? You're in claim?
You're in claims, yes, you've got, and I've got the original down here to sign.
So again, we got a lot of stuff from paving, and that's locking, closing out some of that stuff.
Anything here that should stand out that we should look at?
If you see some individual names, those are board stipends from the,
Okay.
plan commission on those authorized to have them, and also the drainage board, for those individuals. Just some last minute things that need to be taken care of in 21. There's nothing that I can think of that's,
Some big ticketed ones here are pretty much paving and highway funding. So,
All this
I'll-
one's on there 12 times.
well, John,
Who is?
Johnny was teasing about you having to travel.
That's- he's-
He's
oh,
really
yeah,
12
12
times. I don't think so.
well, I'll entertain a motion to accept the year-end claims of $174,548.30.
I second that.
I'll second.
Randy makes a
Yeah.
motion to accept the claims of the number I read, and John seconds that, and I'll make that unanimous.
Yes,
Probably
that,
call this for-
it's, one supply is highway and then is, with the paving, the crossing bridge problem.
Next thing up is an alleyways to vacate in Blotcher, and I think,
I can tell you if you want.
go ahead, John actually took a phone call from, I guess, one of the residents that, or one of the realtor that's selling the property and wanting to know if we would close it. And from this picture, I can't
Yeah.
see where you're talking about.
It's,
Oh, it's a 10-foot alley, I see.
what is that, Broadway? I got the address here somewhere.
You got, yeah, and
There's a house there for sale. Real estate called me and, there's an alley beside it. And they would like to have that alley vacated and basically turned back over to the owners of the properties. I drove out by and looked at it, and it's been that way for so long, you can't even see alleys.
So is this the one you're talking about?
I'd have to, let me see here.
There's a 10-foot alley too.
It's right here, I think. Here's Highway 3. Here's the railroad down here. Should be this alley right here. Well, you go out and look at it, you can't see any alleys anywhere in that town. It's grown up.
So you're talking this one here?
Yep.
So you're talking all the way through?
Well, I suppose we could. I did mention to Zach earlier, and that it's a possibility we may want to seriously consider vacating this whole, every bit of them. Because they're there probably for fire departments 50, 75 years ago. And now you can't even tell there's an alley there. If you can look on that, you'll see that people put buildings on them and everything
Oh, yeah.
else. And, but for real estate purposes, they would like to have that alley vacated. Right through there around
And
there.
you're talking about where it says 33?
Yes.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, okay.
So, but,
Well,
and you can see there's been an alley all the way up down through. You drive by, you won't even see it now.
well, it looks like some of these, and I see where somebody vacated something,
Down below. there.
3/1 of 99. There was something vacated.
Well, that was Jefferson Street, wasn't it?
No, actually, it was an
right
alleyway
here on
just
49.
north of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right there on 49.
There's a few that have been abandoned, vacated in that area. And I just kind of blew up that whole block between Jefferson and, looks like Monroe Street.
I'd venture to say if we're gonna do this for this, I would entertain that we just send a letter to everybody in that block and say, cause there's an alleyway, it looks like, between partial 33, and I'm not gonna say this is a partial, but it's designated with a number on here, 33 and 25, and 32 and 26. There's an alley that runs, through those properties. And then there's, I don't see another one anyplace else, but I also see that, like you said, there's one that runs, I'm gonna say east and west,
Yeah,
north and south.
Yeah.
All the way from Jefferson to Monroe.
And if you look, there's a building right on the alley.
That might be the fire department.
No, it's over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, that'd be my suggestion, and I would venture to say, if we're gonna send letters, we might as well just send them to everybody and say,
And
if we get pushback, then we go back to saying, okay, we'll just do this partial.
And I'm kind of that way too. I did think if Zach was willing to let him take a look at it first, but
And if Zach doesn't have a problem, all we'd have to do, I think, is include in that motion to amend the adjacent legal descriptions. Because if it's a 10-foot wide span alley, then each adjacent owner would receive 5 feet of an alley that was vacated such and such date.
and probably like things like this is where the neighbors are not going to be happy because they'll have to figure out what their buildings on the other side.
Yeah, if it's on their, oh,
Yeah, and
yeah, I
there's 2 or
see
3
that.
like that.
Anyway, the other part of this, and I've actually had some personal conversations with some people, but when we were talking in the past about B&O Railroad vacating a lot of their properties, and then also with the history of me figuring out some tax sales and understanding that one of the tax sales was had by one of the people that bought a tax sale of another piece of property I know. I've actually reached out to some homeowners in my district out in Lexington area where B&O Railroad ran through and contacted them and said that they need to get with the photographer and also talk with the recorder or whoever and have some properties redeeded and gain their property back and pay if there is some back taxes on it, pay those taxes because some of that got sold at tax sale, 25 foot by 10 miles or whatever. Or there's 10 acres of property that this guy bought, but he only owns 25 feet for as long as 10 acres goes. And I've contacted a few people that I know that probably didn't realize that they don't own the property, and it's, there might be somebody that occupies that property in the near future if they don't do something about it.
And I'm going to deviate off a little bit because I don't like doing that, but it's in a meeting as well you're talking about that railroad went right through there. And it's basically a pit now for people to throw tires and junk in. this, I may be getting way off base here, but it would be nice somewhere along the line if we took that, cleaned it up, filled it in.
Where are you talking
I'm
about?
talking about Railroad Street, or, well, where the railroad used to go right there in Blotcher.
Okay.
Right here,
Well,
right
yeah,
here,
I know
right
what
here,
you're
go
talking
front of the
about.
fire department.
So somebody's dumping in there?
Oh, there's all kind of stuff in there.
It
And I got a
looks-
complaint from neighbors to clean it up one time, and, it was too wet. I mean, I was gonna have.
So but what we're talking about.
I don't know
is
who owns it.
Because B&O owns it technically until it deeds back to whoever bumped up again and whoever got the property taken away from them years and years ago, so.
We could do something, fix it up, clean it up,
Well,
throw it, fill it in. I'm off track
But
here.
see,
I
the
got
pro- well,
off schedule. I don't wanna
I
go too far off here.
But that's where I was getting at with these people, because, you know, just as one of the homeowners out in Lexington called me and said, hey, so-and-so's property butts up against mine, and they went in here because they were gonna sell it, or not sell it, their father was going to deed it to the daughter, and what happened is when she went in there and goes, well, I own so many acres from where the railroad used to be, and Larry told her, no, you don't. And so that started the question. I had the homeowner next to her called me, and I said, you need to go and talk to Larry. And then I found out, talking with Zach about B&O Railroad, and Marty talking about how the lawsuit, you know, people sued years ago. I think Zach ended up looking at that lawsuit and realizing that I don't even know where it went with the lawsuit, because I don't think there was ever a end of that. But my indication is that if the homeowner and B&O quit paying the taxes, it's went to tax sale, they need to probably pay the taxes so it redeems back to them. And
they'll
then,
have a process to add to their
yeah,
property.
go in and have it deeded, that section deeded. And the person that I knew had the property, he already had a survey done, and he surveyed his portion already into his survey. So, but people don't realize that there's dead property out here. I call it dead property. It's, you know, that if you don't claim it, it's gonna owned by somebody else, so.
And then some people don't actually want it, so I think at that point in time, if they could get a quick claim from, like I said, for example, if they did pretty good track and they didn't wanna add that much acreage to their assessment, the owners, other owners on the other side, they could quit claim their interest to that, and then they could take it in if they wanted it, so there's a way.
But there's a lot of property owners, and when I looked from the Clark County line to the Jackson County or Jennings County line, Jefferson County line, there was only one homeowner that had redeemed his property through that whole section of railroad. And I was kind of surprised that he did, but there was one farmer that came in and had his all deeded back to him. The rest of them haven't. I mean, I'm talking, there's a lot of people that are gonna be surprised when something happens, so.
so as of 2016, there is a statute that deals with vacation of public ways or places by petition, but it's actually a petition to the legislative body rather than the county commissioners. So it would go to the county council for a hearing. So I would suggest that the interested parties or landowners wishing for a public way to be vacated, or people who are contiguous to those properties, can file a petition or join into a filed petition with the county council. County council could hold a hearing. Afterward, notice would have to be sent by the petitioner. So that would be the people who own the property. Specifically describe all the property, name, and give the names and addresses of all owners of land that abut that property. The county council is supposed to hold a hearing within 30 days of receipt of the petition, and actually the clerk gives notice as well for that hearing by certified mail to each landowner. And then, but the petitioner pays the expense. That's okay. And then anybody can show up to either be in support of that petition at that hearing or object to it, so they can take on evidence essentially. like an administrative hearing, and then depending on what county council will decide, they could adopt an ordinance to vacate the property, which can then be, there's a 30-day window during which that can be appealed to the clerk of the courts, or to the Superior Circuit
So
Courts.
do I need to have the real estate people come in and get on the council agenda in January
They need to file a petition
through
with
here?
the county council.
So do they own the property, or do they?
No,
or
they'll
do-
just sell.
They're
Yeah, so, I mean,
listing it for somebody.
They're listing for.
Well, the
Sawyer.
homeowner needs to.
Sawyer owns it.
Yeah,
The
so
homeowner needs to-
Homeowners would probably need to
Which I'm
bring
not-
a petition.
Okay. All right, I'll talk to them about that. They've done it in the city. They say this is fairly common in the city.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this statute is fairly new, 2016, and there was, I mean, I'm looking at a case that talks about the effect of this statute on an older statute that dealt with, that it used to put this in the hands of the commissioners.
Okay.
And it says that now that the legislature adopted a more specific ordinance, that's the one that controls, so.
Well, I think they need to, whoever owns the property needs to file a petition with us, or come in and talk to us. And then-
Well, I'll get with real estate and they can get with the owner and do however they want. But
Yeah,
let them know how to do it.
Yeah.
sounds good.
Okay.
All right, next thing on here is, talking about the county morgue, and I will say that, the plumbing's the plumbing's in, the electric's in, they were getting ready to start drywalling. So at that point, I think we need to, I'll let Tammy explain why, but because we're at the end of the year, we need to roll something
Encumber
to the.
of funds, because the redevelopment commission appropriated on 2 different occasions a sum of up to $45,000 to help out with the morgue situation, and I have a request for payment from Lincoln Taylor Latco Selby House Contractors for $42,617, and I don't want to let those funds release those funds until the commissioners say that the work is fulfilled. But I do need to get this to Teresa so she can encumber, and we don't have to go through the reappropriation process in January for the redevelopment. So I just, as soon as you guys let me know it's a green light and you're satisfied with it, then we'll bring it to the next meeting, and then we can release the funds. Okay, so they're there, we just need to encumber to hold them, to hold their place till 2022, and when that work's complete, we'll pay Selby House.
So you need a motion from
We're
us.
talking about June 5th.
Whenever it's complete.
Okay.
June 5th.
No.
We'd like to have it done before then, I mean.
Whenever, just
Or
whenever.
January
Lincoln-
5th, I'm sorry.
No, just whenever Lincoln's done there, and you guys, it's satisfied to your pay request, that's
So-
all I need, and you guys agree that that's where it's at, and then we can release the money to them.
So we don't need to make
Mm-mm.
any kind of statement or anything to say that it needs to roll to the next.
I just needed to let you guys
Okay.
know that,
Kinda like we need to go look at it.
Actually, I've been out there, but like I said, it's roughed in, and Lincoln's been sick, and some of his help's been sick, so, but, I mean, we can make each individual can go out there or whatever, but I know it's in a process, and he actually was measuring the cooler and everything else, so, anyway. So if we don't need to act on that outside of that.
that's just kind of an update and let you know that I did receive a pay request.
Okay. Next thing on here is talking about the 2022 meeting schedule.
I've got a sample in there for you guys.
A sample, well, if
I
it's the
do.
first and third, then
It's
it's,
pretty much what it's gonna be, and I double checked the dates, and I think we're good. Unless we have a holiday conflict or something, I think I checked those too, and I think we're clear there, so.
Remain at 5 o'clock, I'm okay
That's
with
got
that.
5 PM on
Yeah.
there, first and
Yeah.
third Wednesdays.
Mhm.
And if you guys wanna go ahead and adopt that schedule, then we'll be good to start next year, and then we'll do board appointments and stuff like that in January.
I'm good with it. I mean, I'll just tell everybody up front, I will not be here on January the 19th, so. But you don't want to change the meeting for me, and I will not be able to Skype in or anything, because I'm not gonna be available.
So we can, I don't mind moving it around, we can leave that date, well, no, we'll just change it, whatever you need to do. As long as Randy's okay, I'm willing to.
Well, it won't be able to be on a Wednesday either, so, but I can make it, I can just tell you if we can move it to the 27th, I
What
should be
day of the
back.
week is that?
It's on a Thursday.
I don't care, I mean, whatever you guys think I'm good with.
I'm fine, whatever works out.
So January 27th?
If that works for everybody
That shouldn't
else.
affect the council, should it?
No, it shouldn't.
No, that's late in the month, so
Yeah.
we're good there.
Kim, you all had a joint session with Baker Tilly
On that day,
On the
19th.
19th?
So I'll have to contact him, see if he can
I'm
come
on the
along and be
20th. Okay.
Mhm.
So-
7th, okay, thank you for reminding me about that, I forgot.
That work?
Yeah, works for me. So I'll need a motion or
Review.
Oh, that's fine.
we don't care if you're here or
And
not.
still at 5 PM? that
Yes,
day?
You guys
yes.
haven't,
Okay.
I don't have it. I might not. Whatever. Don't worry about it.
I'll entertain a motion to accept 2022 Scott County Commissioners meeting dates for a calendar year, so
Yeah, well,
changing the January 19th meeting to January 27th, so.
I'll make one.
Randy makes a motion,
and I'll second that.
John seconds that, and I'll make that unanimous. So, I do have a couple of things. I mean, first of all, I want to thank everybody for, I think, entertaining year, and, I think we're still in the COVID mode. I think I want to see, before we roll into the next year, about extending, the COVID pay for any county employee, as we change that policy from being, if you're a family member or anybody else, that we stuck strictly to, if you're the county employee and you are quarantined, then we're gonna continue to pay you, for that quarantine moment. But I will say this, because that quarantine timeline has changed from, when it first started, it was 2 weeks. It went to 10 days, then it went to 7 days if you do no symptoms, but did I hear that it went to 5?
So I
We're
just got
talking
an email this
about it.
morning for healthcare workers, it's 7 days, and then they're gonna test, so, and then it's only for healthcare workers, so really the only.
So it doesn't affect the county.
EMS for us, so.
So would
For
you
your-
want to amend the policy instead of, it's 10 working days that they're paid for? So is there, if it's a 7 day,
I
I
think we
mean, but
just leave it
again,
like
we've got
it is.
working tight spaces here sometimes too. And just speaking as a department head with a large group that sits fairly close together, we share one bathroom and it's either share with us or share with the public, so we kind of tend to stay in our own little pod. I think about how comfortable people are about things. It's still, 'cause when you go home, then you got everybody else you could expose somebody to. So I kind of want to recommend that we stick with the 10 days paid from work for the entire year, because sometimes there's repeat things too.
I think the 10 days is fine, because if we start deviating to 7 or 5 or whatever for certain classification of employees, then I think we just it gets too skewed and everybody gets too confused. So I think I'm fine with keeping it to the 10 days. And
And it's not a
again,
one and done, because if somebody needs 5 days, they still have 5 days in case they have another quarantine or something later in the year. We watch it in payroll.
anyway, I know we didn't renew that right at the last year, and then we had some county employees at the highway department. I mean, I think everybody down there ended up quarantined at one point. So can we amend the agenda to make that motion? So I'm gonna ask to amend the agenda to talk about 2022 COVID employee compensation. So I'll entertain a motion to extend our COVID emergency pay for
I'll make
our
that
county
motion.
employees.
I'll make that motion to extend the agenda.
I mean, are you guys all right with that? I mean, I'm not trying
I'm
to
okay
do
with it.
something here.
Yeah,
I think
You're making a motion to.
just to
Amend
talk
the
about it,
agenda?
really. You didn't make a motion to do it.
Yeah, just
But
to
to
talk.
change the agenda.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so John made the motion to amend the agenda to talk about the 2022 COVID employee compensation. Randy seconds that, and I'll make that unanimous now.
Yeah.
Anybody got any
If
discussion?
I'm reading you right, it's to leave it the same for 2022 as we did for 2021.
That's correct.
I would agree with that.
Randy?
I'll second that.
Do you wanna just make that to go on to the joint meeting with council, and then you guys
Well,
all
they'll have
approve it
to
at the
approve it.
same time? Cause
Well,
council has to approve it as well.
can't we do it like we did a while ago, go
Make
ahead
a
and pass it?
motion
and
to
then-
We'll do it.
submit it to council.
To take it to joint session, okay.
Well, we'll just go ahead and vote on us, and
They
then
can
we'll
do
take
it.
it there, and they can say no, but I don't see
You
them
was
doing it.
voting on you, John?
That's fine.
I'm sorry?
You was voting for.
Yeah,
that,
I'm
right?
for it. Yeah, a motion made to pass
Okay, I
that.
second that.
I'll make that unanimous, but like I said, I don't even know if we had a whole lot after the after July, that we had a whole lot of people, did we?
You remember downstairs?
Yeah, I do know that.
That was kind of a long thing. And then just some isolated cases here or there.
But I mean, it wasn't, I
We
mean,
don't
I guess I'm
bad
saying,
enough.
what I'm saying is, it wasn't anything that was, and this is probably not the right word, abused or anything like that. Somebody, I mean, people,
I don't think we had to like shut down the department for like
Yeah.
10 days. I don't
Yeah.
think that had to happen. So that's, I guess, a COVID, but, you know.
And then, and with that max 10 days, that's as far as anybody can take it. And then they have to take PTO or go unpaid because it's excused,
yeah, I get that.
but yeah.
All right, well, we'll just ask the council here in a little bit. The other thing I've got is, and Tammy, maybe you can help me here, is that if we have a county vehicle that is involved in an accident, is there a proper way to notify the commissioners or whatever that there's been a county vehicle involved or a claim filed against our insurance?
Now, let me jump in and I can go back into my time. It was a policy back
Did
then.
they have
if you was an
cars then?
accident- Yeah, back in the ancient days. Yeah, when we were there, and I assume it's still there, if you was in a wreck, you had to meet and notify the auditors for insurance purposes. I don't know if anybody's doing that or not. It was a policy 11
You should be
years
drug
ago.
tested too.
Well, that was, yeah, I'm sorry. It's actually more for that than anything. You're right.
But clarify the drug policy, because is it for every accident
I
or?
think it's $500 in the policy. So a lot of times, like, they
Damage
just
of-
send them over.
Damage of
and that
500 or
way-
more?
I think that's what the policy.
There's
is.
post-accident drug tests
I
that
do-
are to be screened, but they're
And
to
then
be
they go to the
screened.
hospital if it's after hours.
And if it's
just
after
like-
hours, they go to the
But
hospital.
I think
But
that
it-
was for any accident, though. It wasn't $500 or anything else.
But
But if
there's,
we
I mean,
receive
because the
a claim-
$500 wasn't the issue to me, it's whether somebody's driving our car inebriated.
Well, yeah, because,
Any claim against the county, I don't care what, accident, injury, employment, we should receive a notice of tort claim.
Yeah.
and that's what I'm
Should be-
getting at, is because,
and I don't think,
That should be
honestly,
from the person
insurance
who was
calls me
hit,
up and
right,
says,
or
hey, look,
who
they don't,
was injured.
the next Monday, if there was an ambulance or something involved in an accident, I don't get a call the next
Well, we
Monday.
wouldn't get that, yeah,
Yeah,
but we would
from
get,
insurance, but, or anybody.
so, but where I'm getting at is if a department that has a car that is involved in a wreck, where they hit a pole, they hit a deer, they hit whatever, do they contact you and say, I have a claim?
Not every time it happens. I
So
find
what do
about,
they-
I sometimes in the course of the week, the next week following, they will call me and say, hey, look,
But are they contacting our insurance?
yes, they know to contact the insurance company
Okay.
to tell them that they've been
I guess that's
involved.
where I'm getting at, because,
Of course, is it policy or is it just something we're doing? I always thought it was policy.
we have an
We had to-
obligation to contract.
They need to, yes, to let the insurance company know, because they know we're insured with them, and they should be letting them know that we've had a problem, and then they technically really should be calling at least this office, because we're the ones in the middle
Yes.
of
I guess
looking
where I'm
for
getting at,
the checks and the claims.
again,
and-
is where I'm
yeah.
getting at, is that, not to say that we need to know everything, but when someone walks up to us on the street corner and says, hey, so-and-so hit this, we don't know a thing about it.
And sometimes I don't know for days.
But I
And
understand
that's for
that.
insurance purposes, but
Yeah.
for purposes of drug testing, it should be immediate.
And that is, and they know, and that's part of the drug testing policy. That part is covered. I mean, that's part of our handbook. But this is about county property, and if you guys need to be
Okay.
notified if anything is ever damaged. I don't know if the handbook says that you have to notify a commissioner whenever, you run into something out in the, like one of the posts out here at the courtyard or something like that. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know that there's, and if you guys want something like that, I mean, that's something we could disseminate, you know, that their instructions are to do this. You know, if there's any kind of damage to, injury or damage to a person, the commissioners, somebody needs to be the one that is the contact point to
Sound
let
like
the
we need-
commissioners know.
Sound like we need to clarify our own.
I think you
policy.
probably do, because if they feel like
Every
you,
time they run off in a ditch, it may not.
No, I don't, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm just saying that, like I said, I heard we hit a light pole in the Walmart parking lot, but I've never
see,
heard
and
anything
I've
about it.
never heard anything about it at all.
But,
No.
And
So-
and I'm gonna present the problem we always have. Even if it happens, what can you do about it?
well, I mean,
Yeah, okay.
but the thing about it is
Yeah.
Richie can walk in here next month and go, here's how many claims you have, and if we go,
Mhm.
we didn't know we had any claims.
Yeah.
Well,
You
and I tell
know.
you what, if it would work from an insurance standpoint, if you would want them to send monthly or quarterly reports to the board, to where you guys can be advised of anything that there was ever a claim about, but then that doesn't cover if we've been hit by somebody else.
Yeah, I get
you know.
that, I think it's I'm just asking. 'cause
It's a
I didn't know-
courtesy
I didn't know what
kind
the
of thing.
policy
It's more
was,
of a courtesy.
that if if county vehicles involved in an accident, if we're, you know, if we're notified, or you're notified, at that point, you could notify us, go,
Yes.
hey, you know,
But sometimes it's
Something
days
happened.
before I even know that something has happened.
I get that.
Every vehicle has to have the commissioner sign off on it, right?
But,
When it's purchased,
yes,
right, when it's
So
purchased.
technically, I think it would go to, if a vehicle's wrecked, commissioners should absolutely know about it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And that's something we could disseminate to department heads, that, you know, if you have, and it could be anything, if they had a water leak, or if they had, something that caught fire inside here, or anything, I mean, you know, the copier, printer, anything, that they had a major ticket item that you guys need to be advised of, because obviously it's gonna have to make its rounds to get replaced or fixed or
Yeah.
something, so.
But I'll go where I've always gone in the past. It's almost always, in my opinion, just come in and check with her. Because she'll know about it before anybody else will, unless they call us directly.
I get it. Like I said, I just wondered what the policy was, and that sometimes I wonder if we're notified, and it's obvious we weren't notified,
No.
so, anyway. All right, we still got 15, 20 minutes. John, you got anything you wanna say?
We've talked, I'm just curious, I would like to consider, not today, but at least our discussion, maybe look what we're gonna go, and maybe talk about some, employees' COVID pay from last year. I know Austin and Scottsburg both done it.
Actually, I had that on my,
So, I think we would at least like to explore it, I would. That'd probably be something the council might have to, like we're doing now, approve it and then them approve it. I don't think we can do it today, but I would like to start that discussion.
well, I actually had that written down here. I overlooked saying something about it, but, I do know that, the city of Scottsburg, I think, if I understand it correctly, they create a bonus and gave all their employees a bonus. And I guess talking with, some other commissioners from other counties that, and actually being at that convention of commissioners in Indianapolis last month, or actually the beginning of this month. I don't know if you were in the room when that lady commissioner from up north said, well, we gave every one of our employees a
Yeah.
raise, plus
And
we
elected officials.
plus we gave the elected officials a raise, and the whole room went, oh, you know, like, are you kidding me? And then they said, well, you can't do that. But anyway, my whole point is that
I don't want one.
No, I don't either.
Yeah,
Talking with other commissioners, they actually formed some committees and actually came out and they described what's the famous word?
Essential.
Like hazardous pay.
Essential employee.
essential work.
Well, they came up with some rules of what constitutes an essential employee during the COVID crisis. And the commissioners were out of it. They formed a committee with some people that went through every employee in the county. And the county's 3 times bigger than Scott County, and they didn't find one employee that met the guidelines. So they didn't do it.
You're out.
I would have a, here's where I'd go with that is, and when we shut down the courthouse, for I think a couple of weeks,
3.5 weeks.
yeah, we continued to pay everybody their salary and everything else, and their benefits were still paid, and I would have a hard time giving somebody a bonus in the sense of a bonus. But what I would consider, and this is something that I think other commissioners have done, is give a raise, which, you know, we probably are in a situation, I think, this year where there wasn't going to be a raise.
Across the board,
Yeah, across the board raise. But what you have to look at is when you give a raise out of, in this case would be ARP money, when the ARP money runs out, you have to continue paying the raise. So, you know, eventually, you know, and I think our money is set and you have to spend it by the year 2026. So we could have money that we could use for,
By 2026, or is it just allocated?
It's spent by
I think
end of
it's,
2026.
I think 2024 you have to have a plan,
Okay.
2026 you have to have it spent.
Spent.
So I think that at that point, I wouldn't have a problem giving a raise when they're not gonna get a raise this year because of the budget issues. So I would entertain that. I mean, as far as saying a bonus and then say it's ARPA, and then try to say, were you an essential worker or not an essential worker, I don't think that was ever fair in my opinion. So, you got,
Well, you know, of course, it's up to the council, but.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
I mean, but I would suggest, you know, that there be we need to look at some raises. And I'm just bringing this one, you know, everybody's important. But I want to bring, just this one up for, you know, an example. You know, you've got the county highway guys down there. They're now paving, they're operators, they're CDL drivers, and we're paying them bottom of the barrel compared to what they could go out here and get a job for. So I think there's, and I'm just saying them because, you know, office workers, I'm not sure what their pay scale is, but if it's falling in the same category and steps as the highway workers, I'm sure everybody's probably way behind times and probably need a raise.
The difference with your clerical, most clerical positions at the county are held to 35 hours. And any compensation you get above that is just time off for time given. So it's just compensatory time. There's never any overtime. There's never additional pay. You never earn a 40-hour week. So that's where our clericals fall. So it's really hard to even recruit from other departments that work 40 hours into your department. If you're clerical, you love to retain county employees if you can, because they know the system, they know how everything works, and that's 60% of it. If anybody's ever had to deal with it, knowing how the county works in government and how the intricacies thereof
Because there's a lot
is
to
a
it.
lot of it. But you can't ever move somebody from a 40-hour department who does a similar type job to a 35-hour, because they won't come work for you because they cut 5 hours of pay for the same wage. They won't come work for you. So it's difficult at times. So again, I feel like you know, that's what I run into whenever you've got
question.
quality people you don't want leaving.
I got a question whether it comes to you or to maybe Teresa, but if we would say we were gonna give a 3% across the board or a 4% across the board raise, I'm not gonna hold you to a number, but I mean, what would that be to the county budget in a county?
Depends on the department, because you've got general fund, which houses most of the employees in here, highway's separate, so it could be a hit to several different budgets.
I mean, we're talking about I mean, we talking $150,000, we talking,
Like 200.
so we're talking roughly $200,000 a year. Okay,
And that's long term, and then if somebody is continuing to work extra their comp time that they pay that out, then you're paying it out at the rate that their new raise is for that budget too.
so that,
It's just a longer term, I think, effect when you do a raise for a department budget than it is just to do a bonus.
Yeah.
Because if you do a bonus out of the art money, like that doesn't affect my 159 budget, but you do a raise, then that's my budget for the next forever.
yeah, but that's exactly
And the
right.
council's
Yeah,
asking some departments like EMS to cut their budgets, so it's like, you're kinda, not saying that raises aren't needed, because I mean, everybody would like a raise, duh, but at the same time, you're kinda like cutting them at the bottom, because now they have to make more cuts to their budget.
I like the pay rate better myself, but ultimately, I think all we can do is suggest it down, can't we?
Because we're cutting general fund next year,
Yeah.
2022. So we don't have the budget order yet, but I do have some numbers. We already have to cut general fund. So be careful how you go forward with that, because you're gonna, if
As
you
far
do a
as-
pay raise, you're gonna obligate down the road.
And that's what I'm saying, because when the money runs out, the ARP money or whatever we set aside runs out,
Right.
then we have to own that. We have to own that debt. I mean, so, and that's where I was getting at.
If you do it as a raise, but if you're doing it as a one-time bonus, because we couldn't do raises for next year, then you're not obligated to that. You're-
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. But I was trying to figure out how, you know, to compensate somebody with a raise that we can pay for with ARP money, but 4 years, 6 years down the road, we're gonna have to own the raise. I mean,
For next year.
well, but we can pay, we can set money aside and say, okay, this year, for this calendar year, we're gonna use ARP money for this. Next year, we're gonna use ARP money for this, and pay the raise out of the ARP money. But in 2026, that
You're saying
ARP money goes,
revert back to the base.
it's gonna
where they're at
go
this-
back to, the county's gonna have to create the fund to pay the raise.
Well, I was looking at this for a one-time shot.
I get that, but I was
I
looking
wasn't
at
looking
that.
at it like we'll do it again next year. I reckon
Well,
we'll see
but
what
it-
happens.
I guess where I was getting at was that if we did a one-time bonus, like some people were doing it for essential workers, and I don't think that's fair to anybody, that who determines who's an essential worker? Because if you're a non-essential worker, then why do we have you employed in the first place?
There's gonna be
Yeah.
winners and there'll be losers.
So,
And the
I would
losers
take
ain't gonna be
that out
happy.
of the game.
that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's fair to say, okay, we're gonna pay these people, but we're not gonna pay these people, but they're still county employees, and I don't think that's fair. So that's where I was getting at. Hey, if we do a raise, and what's that raise gonna cost us, and how do we fund that raise over the next 4 or 5 years? And fund that through the ARP money and for our employees. But it might be a better thing to do the one-time bonus and call it a day. But
And going back to the
I-
purpose, go ahead, Randy.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, and I agree with that, because, I mean, it's not fair to the people if you give a bonus to everyone. It's not fair to the ones who, was able to do their job from their house, and the ones who had to ride next to somebody in a vehicle, during the whole time either. And, you know, when you look at that, you've got the EMS who's actually going out there and working face to face with somebody that they know has COVID.
Yeah.
See?
Well, same way.
That's why
That's the
I
same
agree,
way with
it's,
the
you're better off to
jails.
give a raise.
You know, you had the jailers that were face to face, and you had the EMS that were
Yeah.
face to face. So yeah,
And you
I
have
could.
the health department who is vaccinated for it. So, I mean, it's just. then you have
Well,
to-
we
you
are
have
not
to go
going to
home.
find a perfect formula. It ain't
No.
gonna happen.
But I think it's
Yeah.
open
If
for
you limited
discussion.
Yeah,
the raise
yeah, I
to just
agree with
one
that.
year,
I'm sorry.
because the salaries, council wasn't able to give the broad raise that 50, 75 cents that they customarily try to do to bring everybody up a little bit. So, I mean, if you just elected to just raise the salaries in 2022 to compensate for the lack of council being able to fund more, and then let 23 take care of itself, then you don't have to ever obligate yourself past that year if that is just a one-time raise in lieu of, you know, because obviously we don't have our loss recovery. I think Baker Tilly's just about done calculating the loss recovery for our ARP funds. So this January planning meeting, hopefully, this can be something that can be brought up, and maybe you guys can think about more details about that, because if you do it in lieu of and just limit it to 2022, then council's not left long-term with 3 or 4 consecutive years of increasing everybody 50, 75 cents, and depends on too, the percentage. The more people make, the higher their raise is gonna be. The people on the bottom tier of the wages around here aren't gonna get as much increase. So if you did a flat $1,500 across the board, or looked at the positions they're categorized at, you know, clerical gets 50, maybe your essential workers, if you wanna call them that, like your EMS, your emergency people, maybe they get 75 cents. And then you can look at it from a standpoint of, you know, that process, then council's not left with more than what they may have normally granted these positions anyway to deal with, if they can give a raise in 23. Does that make sense? And if they're not able to, then maybe that's something you go back to the table and do it one more year, because I don't think this pandemic's over, and it's kind of supposed to be to help people get through the hardships of the pandemic. And sometimes people have long-term illness. We know we've had some departments that have had people out for months with a lot of medical bills. So, yeah, so it's a lot to think
I think
about.
that's a discussion.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like I said, I'm with you. I think I wasn't for the bonus part, because I know that's how the city did it. And, I thought if we could figure out a way to give them the raise that we weren't able to give them, that would, you know, appease some people. But
And then it would be part of the permanent salary ordinance, so then council would springboard off of that for 23, if you actually give them a raise for 1 year. And it not be something that has to be repeated unless you guys choose
I
to
think
do it.
that's for a future discussion.
You know, I really haven't had a lot of grumbling about it, but I think it's probably because they're assuming you were gonna do something.
Well, I've heard some talk, but like I said, it's a situation where I'm not saying, I mean, each city can do whatever they want, each county can do whatever they want, but I don't know that I like the formula that they had, but I was just trying to figure out a more fair solution.
It's definitely something we're gonna have to talk about.
So,
I don't
but
think we're
anyway,
gonna find that one, but we can
All
try.
right.
We can try.
anything else?
No, sir.
I'll
He's
entertain-
gonna look at the alleyways. We're gonna look at one alley, is that what, did we decide that at
Well,
this meeting?
They have to file a claim.
Petition.
They have to
Oh, that's
petition.
right,
They
okay.
need to send a
Gotcha.
petition to the
Okay.
county
One
council.
last
I'm
thing
with
while we're still in session here. Marty, about New Frankfurt, can you give us an update? I know you sent us an email about,
I have heard nothing. I sent it to the address in Austin that I was able to find out where the family is temporarily living. And I have had no reaction.
all
Of
right,
course, my
so,
letter only dealt with them, understanding
Occupying it.
that there would be no one living on the
okay.
property.
Well, but that's what I'm wanting, that there is an official letter sent to whatever official resident they're claiming. And at that point, we can say, we sent this letter to this address as your last
Correct.
known address, and if we find out in the next 30 days somebody's living in that place, then we can come back with maybe council will tell us that we can come back with something a little bit more stiffer and say, we're telling you can't do this, and we have an ordinance that says you can't live in a dwelling that's smaller than 950
You
square
already
feet.
have that ordinance.
I
right?
get that, but she sent a letter to them, a certified letter to the address of last known addresses, and what I'm saying is that they're not there now, but if they, in the next 30 days, they move in, we can use a little bit more force than what we have
You
right
can
now.
you could issue a notice for a hearing, I believe, in front of the board of,
There is a procedure in the
Zoning.
zoning ordinance that we can follow.
to
And we can find them daily.
fine and, yes, yeah.
Okay, and that's where I'm getting, we're over the creek here, and we need to get on the other side of the creek.
The thing is that the issue, she'll left, but, the health department, from what I can tell from the pictures and everything, like, we're essentially done with.
Yeah.
And there are no more
This is a
health
living
department
ordinance.
jurisdictional concerns about that specific property. Oh,
There is, because I talked to Tim Bruner, and he also indicated he would be sending a letter out specifying what they had to do to clean up the rest of the property.
well, that piece, yes, just to get rid of there's some debris,
Right.
forgot about that, there's some
Yeah.
debris there. But that's, a separate piece, that's a solid waste
Yeah.
issue.
I just wanna put that to
This is,
bed.
yeah, what you're talking about is a zoning issue.
Yeah. Okay, and we have a meeting on the 12th,
Yes,
so we'll be bringing that up at that meeting too, or I will be, so.
I will check with Tim Bruner in the meantime. He will be attending that
I
meeting
mean,
on
so
the
that's
12th
the
as well.
reason that you give.
Well, cause like I said,
Well, that, but also.
when it's brought to our attention that somebody's living in a facility or quarters that are not against our ordinances, then we need to try to address it the best we can,
I can't
and
imagine that we're giving.
right now, they're
this
not
particular scenario.
currently living in that, but I wanna be able to have some backbone whenever we come back and say, we gave you a letter, we told you you couldn't do it, we told you verbally in a hearing that you can't do it, and you're doing it anyway, so, anyway. All right, I'll entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Well, then they just lose.
Motion adjourned.
John makes a motion to adjourn. Randy?
I'll second that.
Randy seconds that, and I'll make that unanimous, so this portion of the commissioners meeting is closed,
That's
and
why, actually.
I wanna turn this